Bob Nagy, AB5N again here for another equipment review, this time a very unique and interesting radio I hope you enjoy. It's the Elad FDM-Duo SDR. Now, the shift to SDR radios is absolutely unstoppable at this point. Superhead is on its way out, SDR is on its way in, because the performance and eventually priced ratio is going to be unbeatable compared to a superhead radio. So we're seeing this shift, and it's happening. Big manufacturers are jumping on the bandwagon now, but the parts count in these radios is actually less than the traditional superhead, and when they finally get past the engineering costs, these radios should be very competitively priced. What you have when manufacturers make a radio like this is a decision whether to let you get into the real guts of that radio, into that SDR, and adjust a lot of the really fine details at the more base levels of the SDR's operation, or all the way to put it in a box with knobs where it feels just like an old traditional superhead radio, and it gives you the screen and display and everything. But other than that, all the controls are where you expect them to be, and they don't really let you get in and get to that bottom level. And we have a whole spectrum of manufacturers now that are on that spectrum. We have Flex, of course, been in it for a long time, and they're letting you do both things. They're putting displays right on the radios now, or in the older days you could just operate it on a PC, and of course you can operate it on a PC or with the display now in any combination, remotely, locally, all this great stuff. So they're giving you all the options. ICOM and Yaesu have their two radios, the FTDX101 Delta coming out very soon, 7610 from ICOM, which are very similar radios, which offer you a box with knobs, and you're not able to get into that super bottom level of adjusting the stuff. The one difference I see really on the box with knobs versus the SDR radios that do have the PC interface is that on the PC interface, the number one feature I see usable on an SDR is that you can see the signal, and then you can see your filter bandwidth right on top of the signal, and you can adjust it to conform right to that incoming signal's bandwidth. That is the number one primary feature I find advantageous to an SDR on a nice display screen. The boxes with knobs let you do this with little workarounds, and you can change the screen and do this kind of thing and get the same effect. But I want to see it right on the main display, right over the signal I'm looking at. And for some reason, Yaesu and ICOM haven't offered that feature in their box with knob SDRs. Of course, now, because they have IQ output, you're allowed to use, or are capable of using, other things like HD SDR and other programs, some of which may offer this, but it's evolving in that direction. So one of the manufacturers of SDRs that you probably haven't heard of because they don't advertise in QST is Elad, E-L-A-D. They're a electronic test lab equipment manufacturer in Italy. So they're making oscillators and all the stuff you'd use in an electronic lab, and they decided that they would make a HF SDR because a lot of their other technology sort of overlap this. Everybody's using these A to D chips, but you just don't see this radio out here. Now, I picked up the FDM-Duo from them at Dayton last year, and here it is. I got it in red, anodized aluminum. Comes in black and red, but red. What does this thing stick out among my other radios? But I don't know. I just thought it was sort of cool. Their philosophy is to let you get all the way down into the bottom level, and you could completely mess this thing up if you made some big mistakes down there, but it allows you a level of customization with the user interface that I have not seen in other systems. So I primarily use it for digital communications. It's really adept at doing that, but it works great on SSB, and it produces really beautifully clean, great sounding signals on all the modes. Hard to make a bad signal with this radio. What makes this radio unique is that it allows you to use up to 9 simultaneous receivers on the stock model. That's just wow. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that unless you had 9 ears and 9 brains. It does transmit and receive from 160 to 6. It runs fully independently as a portable radio with an LCD display, a tuning dial, and the controls right on the front. You just take it right out and use it as a radio, or it interfaces with a PC, or basically simultaneously both of them are on. You've got a lot of choices there. It is a QRP radio. All right, big catch. It runs, like they say, 5 to 9 watts out, something like that, depending on the bands. And so I run an outboard amplifier with it, and there seems to be a lot of those coming along from RM in Italy, a lot of different makers. I got one from Zigu in China, really beefy 150 watt amp, and it's still between those two pieces of gear, it costs less than any of the other SDRs. This user interface is superb. I have to say, wow, just amazing. Some of the things you can do with it you can't do with the other SDR radio operating systems I will show you. And it's got a great noise blanker and great noise reduction too, so the processing in there is powerful. All right, let's take a look at this radio in depth. The FDM-Duo can operate completely autonomously or connected to a PC, and the buttons have multi-functions, just like most radio buttons these days. Also, the rotating controls have multiple functions, and you can push them in. There isn't a lot of real estate on the rear of the FDM-Duo, but everything you need is there, including dual antenna connections, your microphone connection, your CW paddle connection, your PTT out for keying and amplifier, 3 USB connections which go to your PC, your power. There's some external I/O on a DB9, your on and off power switch, ground lug. There's even a connector for a GPS discipline clock in the reference in, 10 megahertz clock, and a 1 milliwatt output to use this on the top left as a signal generator. Here's the basic layout of the SW2 software, as I prefer it, that's running the FDM-Duo SDR. You have ultimate customization availability on this, so you can just do whatever you want with this, but I like it's shown right here. The first thing I want to talk about is the way that you tune this radio. This is a very unique situation right here underneath the spectral display, in that we have 3 bars, and each of them has a faster movement of the tuning. If I grab this with my mouse and just move it around, we can go to the left and right quite easily. And if we want to move, say, between bands very, very quickly, we can use the middle one. And we can go even faster with the bottom one, go shifting all the way between shortwave bands and 20 meters and this kind of thing. So it's coarse, medium, and fine tuning. And these are completely customizable as far as how you want them to move, how fast you want them to move. So that's one way you would do it. Of course, you can just click on the signal itself and with the mouse and go right directly to that signal. Here we have PSK and those other things down here. So you have that secondarily, and then you can use a mouse with a scroll wheel in the center and scroll up and down, or you can use the left, right, up, down arrow keys on your keyboard and actually move up and down. So you've got several ways of tuning this. In fact, you can just click on the frequency display up here, and then you can get a manual mouse control here, and increment and decrement here, any one of the kilohertz or megahertz digits right here, or input the frequency directly. So there's lots of ways of tuning this radio. Now, what's really interesting about this radio is that it enables you to put your frequencies that you like in memory and then tag them such that you see the names of what you're looking at right on the screen. And that's really, really handy. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here on the spectral display. I can see that if I just click on this bar over here, I'm right in the Olivia digital section of 20 meters, or right here to the FT8 section, smack dab right on frequency. Now this is for all of my shortwave stations that are in memory and everything else. So I can click right to them and see exactly what they are. I find that to be really, really cool. I'm going to show you that the memory button down here brings up a memory screen here, and it shows you all the things we put into here. But this also allows you to load up the DX cluster readings directly off of their server and display those if you'd like, or a list of all of the Digital Radio Mondial shortwave digital stations. So it has a lot of flexibility as far as importing groups of memories into it. Of course, you just click on them and you go right there. Let's take a look at the modes that this radio is capable of here, and then we're going to do a complete tour of the screen. Right here, if we drop mode down, we see we've got CW. You can go plus or minus the central carrier. You've got, of course, all your USB and LSB modes, AM, FM, Digital Radio Mondial, which is just amazing that it's a direct accessibly mode on here, the digital shortwave broadcasting mode, wideband FM, sync AM, sync carrier AM, and double sideband RTTY, and extended with sideband over here. This radio will transmit up to 4 kilohertz wide on transmit. So let's take a little tour around the display area here. Of course, here's your frequency readout over here. We can snap right to sort of quantize the jumps that we have, or we can lock it, of course. This allows you to lock the bandwidth window, your window that you're actually looking on the signal, to the tuning bars, or you can unlock it and you can move the window itself. So you can lock it or you can move it independently. And to the right over here are the IF and AF windows, where you can open up these two little windows on the left and sort of zoom in on the IF here. You can look at it post-demod or pre-demod. But this is nice because what this does is, this is where you can on the fly adjust your bandwidth around the signal. So I just grab the edge of it, top or bottom, adjust it exactly as I want. When I'm working somebody on digital, on Olivia or PSK, I completely narrow into the signal, absolutely. And underneath is the audio spectrum display, which also is an audio filter around your bandwidth you're listening to. So you can independently adjust that as well as your IF digital filtering. Underneath the audio spectrum window, we can see that there's the receive equalizer here. We can turn it on and turn it off, and we can adjust it completely. There also are a ton of things in the IF window over here where I'm not going to show you expressly, but you can pick two signals and look at them, mark them, and then look at the difference between two signals and all the data about them. Really some very advanced stuff over here. Back to the main window, we're going to go to the right here, and this is where we zoom in and zoom out on the spectral display, so you can really get in super close, or you can back out. Quite self-explanatory. This is the TX transmit control over here, where we decide, well, what mode do we want to transmit in, and are we going to use a microphone connected to the radio itself, the physical radio, or are we going to use an input from the USB? That could be a digital signal, or it could be a microphone, such as an ATR 2100 USB microphone. If we click on Advanced over here, here's where we really get into some nitty-gritty. This is very, very cool stuff. You can add all of these things to your processed audio when using a USB microphone. It does not work on the one that plugs into the standalone radio that you take out in the field, because of course we're working on the PC here. At the top, we see right away that we have pre-recorded transmit files. Well, a lot of radios have those, but we've got them here too in 16-bit, 48 kilohertz. And you can load them up, store them, and then play them on the air. We've got the transmit equalizer over here. We can turn on and off. We have got Vox, of course, with threshold and delay. And then we have a very extensive compressor that has all the adjustments that a really studio-grade compressor has, along with the display showing you as you're modifying it. We have got the transmit bandwidth control. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on by clicking the on button down here. This allows you to access everything. But you have all your bandwidths on transmit here. You can select whether the thing's going to be USB transmit or whatever. And here we have the waveform of the audio coming in for the transmit, outgoing transmit audio. So, wow, some really nice controls, including a manual PTT down here and tune control. Let's go ahead and back out of this and then show you some more stuff. As we go to the right over here, we have our main control center for the transceiver, attenuator, that's self-explanatory. We have a low-pass filter because this radio is capable of receiving up above the HF band, but most of the time you're going to keep this 54 megahertz low-pass filter on to keep out stuff like, broadcast stuff. We have a noise blanker, which is very effective and has a level control over here. I was very pleased with how this thing works. It is among the best I've ever used. We have notches we can put onto the to notch out carriers onto the bandpass of the signal that you're listening to. Pretty much standard in most SDR these days, and it has two of them. Multiple receivers. This can receive 4 receivers on this receiver, and you can pull in a second receiver and have 4 slices on it, 4 independent ones on that. Now we're talking the outboard receiver running and 8 PC-based receivers running at the same time. You'd have to be a madman, but I imagine somebody can put all those to use. But a lot of times you might want to be decoding, something on a second receiver and listening and doing your normal stuff on another receiver. We've got, of course, our mode that we're operating in here, the bandwidth control underneath of it, which you can do manually from here with the up and down arrows, or you can use that little IF window and slide it by dragging the mouse. We got your AGC, which is completely adjustable, fast, medium, slow, and off. We have really what's called the threshold control in SDRs, but it is the RF gain, basically. And it adjusts exactly the same way. So as you slide it to the right, it goes down in sensitivity. Noise reduction, the digital noise reduction, works great. Very pleased with the way that works as well as far as how badly it degrades a signal. Here's your adjustment on it. Auto notch, where you're auto notching out an interfering carrier, has that as well with an adjustable slider. And here we have the 4 basic receivers on this particular receiver. Each of them has 2 volume controls, because you could be routing audio to the speakers and adjust that. But you could also be routing audio to something else, like your outboard digital decoding program, FLDigi, WSJTX, or any number of ones, and you can separately send its level out to your digital program. You got squelch for FM here, and you have outputs. These are stereo outputs, so you can go ahead and change the left and right stereo outputs on this. These have X's through them because I only have one receiver running at this time. Underneath that, we have our little chiclets to immediately jump to the bands of interest, and we can do these completely customizable. Included in these are the general shortwave receiving bands, children's band here on 11 meters, 2 meters in wideband FM over here, and under that we've got a mini window for the memories. Right under the mini memory window is a little thing where it shows the UTC time, local time, how much the processor in your CPU is being taxed, and the CPU usage of the program itself, SW2. We go along the bottom here and we have a recording panel. This is really neat because this gives you the old feature of the Flex SDRs where you can record the entire incoming digitized spectrum, or you can just record the demodulated audio. It's your selection. Save unlimited numbers of files to your hard drive, and that whether you're going to do audio or the entire spectrum is set up in the set menus over here. Now let's take a look at the set menu itself. This is where a lot of activity happens, where you can customize this radio to the max. And I'm going to jump through this because I don't want to make this a 2-hour video. I'm only going to skim over this stuff that you really get a feel for what this radio is capable of. Here we are in tuning step, and this allows you to set up whatever mode that you desire over any tuning range. So as immediately as you go to that frequency range, it goes into the mode you want, and whatever step you want there, etc., etc. That's really handy. Presets of the bandwidth. When you step through the different presets with your arrow keys, it can go ahead and jump to particular presets. Here's your tuning preset buttons over here. That means all our little chiclets. When you kick on 20 meter the button on the software, what range does it jump to over here, and what mode is it going to go into, and what are the specifics about it? That's very handy because you can set anything you want up for your favorite band there. Here's some sort of fine-tuning on that. We're going to jump through this stuff. Audio, you can set all your AGC settings for fast, medium, slow over here, attack and decay times, and your main audio output device, and its general level over here in case you really need to bump it up. Many of the digital programs require a little bit different input and output level, so you might want to jump it up or down. Here's where we're dealing with the secondary volume controls, and we can send audio out to virtual audio cables. Those, you can get those little utility programs, and go ahead and set out where you're sending the audio from those little audio sliders. Graphics, wow. I have mine set up very similar to the way I set up my Flex radio. I really like the green under the spectral display. I want it really super fast, and all this stuff you just play with. You can always go back to the default settings, but just go ahead and play with it. One of the important things to know is that the refresh time is your frame rate down here. I have it set to max because I want the fastest display refresh I can get, and you've got a lot of different things over here. Waterfall, persistence, things like that, the way that your IF and audio spectral windows work as well. You can, and I haven't been able to find it right off the bat here, flip the waterfall and the spectral display above and below each other. I happen to sort of get used to it and like the waterfall to be above the spectral display now. So here's where you really get to make it look just like you want on the display itself. Demod settings over here, bandwidth presets. Again, you can preset what you're jumping to when you're using the arrow keys, how fast it's tuning to the left and right. And here we are with how much of the bottom end do you want when you're listening to a sideband signal? You want it to go down to 0 hertz, or you want it to start at 100 or 200, 300? You can set it. I have it 0 right over here. What's your CW pitch setting? I like 600 hertz, things like that. Your roll-off filter for the FM mode and wideband de-emphasis mode over here. Remote control. Wow, well, of course we've got cat control because the program itself is talking to the radio and needing to get the frequency and everything like that. So this is set up here. TCP server, I don't think this is implemented yet, but this would be where you would be completely remotely operating the radio. Some net-based stuff. And also OmniRig is a program that can remote control the radio, and I do not have it installed at this time. Here's something very interesting. The device configuration is the general configuration of the radio itself, and that means that I can decide how much I want it to digitize and capture, and I can have a very wide amount of capture, like 6144 kilohertz over here, or I could just set it to the 192 kilohertz. Of course, the thing has to work a lot harder when you're setting it to a much wider sampling rate, but you can decide to have disregard the external radio and just use the internal radio, or vice versa. Any combination of settings here. This is the standard one, 192 kilohertz wide, standalone, and single channel acquisition. But you've got some choices, and your PC will be taxed accordingly the more extensive you want this thing to function at. Auto start to modulation, in other words, when I fire up the program, it automatically turns it on and starts playing. You can add down converters to this and do your frequency offset, things like that. So there's some advanced settings in here that we don't need to know at the moment. The important one to know is that it also interfaces with N1MM program, and it sends the spectrum to the N1MM server if you want, when you put their IP number in there. There is an external control device called the Teammate that's primarily sold in Europe from what I saw. I don't know where it's available at the moment, but it's sort of a tuning knob kind of external configuration and some push buttons if you wanted to have a regular tuning knob on the thing. So take a look out there for Teammate. Here's our station memory where we can pop in all of these frequencies. When we're listening to something, we can just right-click and add it to our memory file automatically, and it'll ask you for a label at that time, or we can manually put these in here, and it's saved, and you can have multiple collections of memories. And this is also where you can pull in stuff from different collections of frequencies that are out there, including the DX cluster itself. Here we go with recording, where you decide what you want to record and where you're going to put it, things like that. If you want to keep a maximum amount of files, so you don't want to use all your hard drive for this, you can keep it limited a little bit. We can stream audio from this thing to a online situation, and then here's just the revisions of the firmware. And the internal firmware includes the user interface, the FPGA, the USB connector itself and its drivers, the receiver and transmit software or firmware itself. So all of these are upgraded independently into the radio, and I just did all of mine, and it worked out just fine. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit over here and then add some other receivers. You just click on them here. When the bar is underneath the thing, that means it's the active one. But we can really have a lot of receivers going over here with different IF spectral windows showing up, and these will end up having different colored bars, and each of them is an independent receiver. These are called slices in the Flex world. But you can have a lot of these going, and this is an amazing radio. I do believe this is a 16-bit system, but I haven't been unable to identify the A to D chip itself.
Before Louis Lop, this is the first contact WD4DNA and 4UN.
It's John, Juliet Oscar Hotel, November, and the QTH is near the city of Ghent, Golf Hotel, Echo, November, Tango, Kent in Belgium. Okay, very good, Cecil. I will send you a QSL card via the Bureau, as this is our first QSL. If that's okay with you, and I would appreciate the card from you. WD4DNEO and 4UN. Okay, 7 trees, and have a long, nice weekend. Bye-bye.
So what's the takeaway? Well, the takeaway is that there are other offerings out there from different companies in different countries that are getting into this SDR arena, and Elad is one of them, coming from a test equipment background. Of course, the Italians are going to make the darn thing look different, and it does come in black. I just thought the red looked sort of keen. So For a little less money, you can get into a QRP SDR that does a standalone configuration completely for QRP operation out in the field, or add an amplifier to it, or bring it in the shack and have an awesome PC-based radio, and you can add an amplifier to it there. I have different amplifiers for portable and in the house. So there you go, the Elad FDM-Duo. Thanks for 30 minutes of your time. Hope it was worth it. And until next time, take care.